What's going on today, YouTubes? These are all 4 videos going to be recorded in the same session, so I have time to do other stuff during the week. Right now, we were going on the Denver Broncos. If you watched the videos on Tuesday, you saw my predictions for the Chiefs and Raiders. Now we're going on the Broncos, and then later today, you will see the Chargers video posted as well. Starting off, I believe Russell Wilson is going to a similar situation with different strengths and different weaknesses. I think in Seattle, he had a very strong strength at wide receiver and then a pretty good running back room and a pretty bad offensive line. Now he's going to Denver where he's got a pretty good wide receiver room, a pretty good offensive line, and a pretty good running back room. So I think the strengths of the Seahawks, kind of bring them maybe just a little bit below the overall solidity. Is that a word? Solidity of the Broncos offense. Obviously, he's getting a better offensive line. That's probably what he's hoped for the most. That's probably why he picked the Broncos, is they have good weapons, good running backs, a good offensive line, and need a really big needed quarterback, essentially. Going on to the defense, the addition of Randy Gregory, I think is going to be, or is going way under the radar. I think he slots right in at that defensive end position, opposite of Bradley Chubb. I think they're going to run it just depends on what kind of defense they run. I think they should have Nick Chubb rushing off the side, and then he can obviously drop back into coverage. But I think you need to play more of a 3-4 tech or a 3 tech with Randy Gregory. I don't think you want him dropping back in coverage, but obviously with the back end of that defense having A.J. Johnson, Justin Simmons, of course, Pat Surtain is amazing. Bryce Callahan, I believe, is still there. Kareem Jackson, I believe, came back on a 1-year deal. So you don't need Randy Gregory to drop back into coverage, as many coverage guys as you have on that defense. Going into the schedule, I have them picking up the game against Seahawks. Seahawks will not be good. Obviously, they traded away Russell Wilson, as they see they are not a contending team. Week 2, I have them. I believe the Seahawks will put up a better fight than most people think against the Broncos, but I do believe the Broncos whip that out. Week 2, I have them picking up the game against the Texans. Obviously, I haven't explained why anyone's going to beat the Texans yet, because Texans are not a good team. In my opinion, Brandon Cooks is the only really good player on that team, and Derek Stingley's going to have a great defensive year. But that's it. In Week 3, I have him dropping the game against San Francisco 49ers. I believe if Trey Lance can, come out and light it up, I think that they could have a really good season, but it just depends on how Trey Lance is. This game could go either way for me. Week 4, I have them playing I don't have them playing. This is who they're playing. They pick up the game against the Raiders. The Raiders-Broncos games are so tough because I think they're so close in team-wise. I think the obviously that's, weighted as I think the Raiders will have a better offense, but the Broncos will have a much stingier and much better defense. So they could go either way. If the Raiders offense can find a way to stump the Broncos defense, I think the Raiders could win both games. If, they just go back and forth, I think it could split. And if the Broncos offense really just explodes and their defense is super good, obviously they could pick up both games as well. Week 5, I have them picking up the game against the Indianapolis Colts. I believe Matt Ryan does add a certain value to the team that Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz don't have. I think that's stability and consistency at the quarterback position. I just don't think it puts him in that hump of the upper echelon teams in the AFC. In Week 6, I have them dropping the game to the Chargers. If you haven't seen the Chiefs video and the Raiders video, you would not know that I believe the Chargers are going to be stacked this year with all the additions that they made. Week 7, I have them beating the Jets for, probably clear reasons. I don't think the Jets have taken that step quite yet. I believe they have the chance to. Robert Saleh is finally building the defense that he wants, and he's getting great offensive pieces to surround Zach Wilson with. I think this year it really depends on whether Zach Wilson can take that step. He's got, a couple good wide receivers. He's got a couple good running backs. He's got a couple good offensive linemen to stand behind, and he's got a good core of young defensive players to help him, keep game scores low to, give him a chance. In Week 8, I have him picking up the game against the Jags. I think the Jags are in the same situation as the Jets. I think it's just a little bit better with Trevor Lawrence having more upside than Zach Wilson. I do believe the Jets are surrounding Zach Wilson with more talent than the Jags are setting up Trevor Lawrence with. I know Jags just spent the most amount of money in free agency this year, I believe, but the talent to spending ratio is not there. Week 9 is obviously their bye, and then Week 10 I have them picking up the game against the Tennessee Titans. If Derrick Henry is on the workload I believe he should be this year, I don't think the Titans will be as competitive as they have in recent years. Derrick Henry's getting older. He's now had a serious injury to his foot, which is very important as a running back, especially someone of his type of such a bulldozer. So we'll have to see how they handle Derrick Henry's situation to see really how the Titans will do this year. Week 11, they play the Raiders. I believe they pick up this game. I have them splitting this year. But like I said earlier, they could split. One could take both games, or the other could take both games. It really just depends on how they play each other. Week 12, I have them picking up the game against the Panthers. By this point, you're really going to tell whether Baker Mayfield's going to be the guy to turn around that offense, or if he's just going to be another Sam Darnold or Cam Newton at the end of his career. I don't believe so. I do believe Baker will have, kind of a revenge tour starting off this year against the Browns. But I've also been a big Baker believer pretty much his entire career. He just had such a hard beat at it, dude. Week 13, I have him picking up the game against the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson will give the Broncos defense fits, but I think overall the Broncos team is better than the Ravens, especially with the Ravens losing. Ravens just had a big injury. I can't remember who it was. Obviously, the Ravens defense is going to be better this year with Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters back. They just drafted Kyle Hamilton. But I cannot remember who that injury was, and it was pretty big if I remember right. In Week 14, I have them dropping the game against the Chiefs. I believe they brought both games against the Chiefs this year. I just think the Chiefs have more experience, will have more team chemistry. By that point, if Patrick Mahomes does his due diligence on Juju Smith-Schuster, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, and Sky Moore, I believe Chiefs will have somewhat manageable offensive receiving core this year, but that also depends on how Juju Smith-Schuster decides to play. I don't think Juju Smith-Schuster is a good wide receiver, one, because the only good year he had, Antonio Brown, was on the other side of him before he went nuts, and since then he's just not been, the same person. So Week 15 against the Cardinals, obviously the Cardinals decided to not play football towards the end of the year, or good football at that, I guess. Kyler Murray always looks like an MVP candidate through the first 8 weeks after their bye, Week 9, they just start going downhill. Kyler Murray starts playing worse. If you guys watched that LA Rams Arizona Cardinals playoff game last year, you could just see it was like midway through the third quarter, Kyler Murray gave up. He was just not playing. He's just going out there throwing balls around. Week 16, I have him dropping the game against the LA Rams. I do think the Rams will repeat. I do think the Rams will be just as contenders as they were last year. Week 17, I have him dropping the game against the Chiefs. Obviously, I explained that in the Week 14 matchup. And then Week 18, like I said earlier, I think the Chargers will be stacked. I don't think any team made more or the same quality or quantity of starters as other teams have this year. Other than that, though, I think that's going to be it. I think Broncos. Oh, I got to go over the recap. Yeah. I have them 11-6. I have them at the number 7 seed, 2-4 division, but that AFC West is stacked. And then 8-4 in conference. Like I said, when I was talking about the matchups, a lot of these games could go either way. They could split with the Chiefs. They could also, drop the Chiefs, both Chiefs games. Like I said, they could drop this game against the Ravens. They could honestly drop this game against the Titans if Derrick Henry is incredible. They could split with the Chargers if the Chargers have not figured or the chemistry out by Week 6. They could take this game against the 49ers if Russell Wilson comes out and plays at his early season MVP form. But they could also drop games, you know what I mean? They could drop this game against Indianapolis. They could drop this game, both games against the Raiders. They could get in a trap game here and drop this game to the Panthers. And then in Week 15, if Kyler Murray decides to put a full season together, they could lose that game. So it just depends on how it all plays out with injuries, how players are playing towards if they change ways and stuff like that, like I said with Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. But that's going to be it. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to comment down below if you think I missed on any of these takes or if I hit it hard on the head. I was going to say spot on the head, but that doesn't make sense either. Hard on the head sounds way weird. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. It makes sure to help the channel grow. And peace.